YouTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie and it's time for a reading update. This might be the first update of June. Actually, no, it can't be because I know I had to have done another update this month because it's now mid-month. It's in the middle of the month. I know I did do my spring wrap-up already, even though spring doesn't end until it is in a couple days. I think it will end. I just went ahead and went and did my wrap up because to me June is the beginning of summer. So even though technically half of June is when summer starts, because I think it's like the 20th or 22nd is when summer officially starts. So I'm gonna I do have a non-reading related update, sort of. I mean, it kind of is reading adjacent. But it's not about books. So let me talk about that first. I've been thinking about this on and off and how I want to get back into writing. And like, if I see my dad work on his own books, because he's been getting to writing himself, and he's written at least 2 books so far, and he's working on the 3rd one. Shadows of Saigon is the first one. It is a Vietnam War story where this old man, it starts with he has a heart attack and ends up going to this local hospital and while under anesthesia, he flashes back to his high school years and then when he went to Vietnam and met the love of his life. And then the other one is Sage Among the Pines. Is about a teenage girl. It's a coming of age story about a teenage girl who her dad was in, I think, Iraq, and he died in a helicopter crash. And her mom has been having a lot of problems since it happened. And her mom decides she can't take care of her properly and needs to check herself into rehab or one of those facilities, and ends up sending her daughter to live with her grandparents in North Carolina. And they own a ranch farm, and she learns some life lessons, makes friends. All the while, there's problems with her relationship with her mother, especially because her mom and dad were fighting, and she was very close to her dad. So, and I think so far that's the one they're kind of, Sage Among the Pines, I think, is the one they're kind of, his agent is getting him to, getting people to, is the more popular one, I think, because it's about a teenage girl, and I think young adult stories are very popular right now. But, so, and every time I see him working, I end up feeling guilty and feeling like, because there was a time when I was wanting to be a writer, I wanted to write a book. Of course, hearing about the publishing industry and how I think that also contributed to my anxiety about writing a book and why I kind of put it aside and kind of gave up on it. But then I started thinking about it recently again, and because I still have come up with ideas, and I'm trying to come up with ideas that don't sound like something else. But it is very hard to be original, I feel like, especially in the genre that I want to write, which is fantasy. And, I do feel like also because I was so used to writing fan fiction, because I did write fan fiction. I was one of those fans that would write fan fiction for Once Upon a Time, and I feel like that kind of like, because you're basically taking someone else's characters and setting and coming up with your ideas of where you want to see them go, what you wanted to see happen to those characters, and sometimes you put yourself in the story. And I felt like I did that so much that it was, kind of I lost my momentum on my coming up with my own ideas, my own characters and my own stories, because it was so easy when I was a kid to come up with story ideas. And now as an adult, and it could be also being an adult now, when the adult responsibilities, like having a job and thinking like an adult, probably doesn't help either. But so I'm trying to get back into that, and it's a bit hard because I feel like I let myself get distracted too easily, and it's so I did, today when I went to, yes, I went to the Outpost again, Outpost Bookshop, and I decided to sit down. I brought a note. I had a small notebook in my bag that I brought with me, and I sat there for a little bit after, and of course I bought books, but after I did that, I wrote. I decided to write. At least write. I didn't start like a chapter or anything, or like wrote a scene or anything. I just wrote down my two ideas in chicken scratch because it is very hard not to mess up when I'm writing, especially with the kind of pen I was using. And I kept scratching out because I kept misspelling the words because I was like using cursive, and I mean I know how to spell, but sometimes because I've started using cursive again instead of print in the last couple years. And sometimes for a second, you forget and you have to think, okay, how do you write this letter in cursive? And then how do you spell the word? And then, this notebook, when you got to the end of the line, you had the little spirals, and it kind of messed it up. So I would have to go to the next line to add the word if the word was a little bit long. So it's kind of sloppy looking, but at least I can read it. I know what I wrote, So yeah, that's my reading adjacent thing. Oh, and well, one more thing. We did go to the farmer's market, which I recommend because that is, I mean, if you want like really fresh food and from a farm or whatever, check out a farmer's market because that food can be, because it's so fresh and it hasn't been gone through a processing plant. It's like, I think there's something about it, a quality about that is so much sweeter, so much better tasting. I was gonna say sweeter, and yeah, that would probably apply to a lot of fruits and stuff. But there's I do like that. I'm not one of those people who's trying to be, be traditional. That folk does traditional all the time. It goes back to the old-fashioned traditional values. Cause I'm not trying to say that I'm like I go down there, because yeah, I still do a lot of the modern. I have loved a lot of modern conveniences, and I'm one of those millennials who loves being on my laptop and all that. But and I'll eat junk food. I will probably eat food that's not good for me, not good for my body. But so I'm not trying to say that I'm one of those people. I'm trying to influence you to do that. But I do think, but I think, farmers markets with the fresh made food is actually really good. I mean, it's not just trying to be like, oh, I'm, going traditional. It's just really, it's actually better, I think. It tastes better. Anyway, so that's the other thing, that we literally just came back from that visit, because there's 2 days during the week that they will come to to the little town where I live, that they'll set up a farmer's market. And sometimes we forget it's going on, or like it already happened. But anyway, so now let's talk about the books. Let's update you guys on the books. So I did attempt to start The Tempest by Shakespeare, but I tried to read it when I was going to bed. So I was falling asleep. I only got through like a page of the actual play. And so there's nothing really to tell. But I do want to, it was one of the books I do want to read for the summer. And it's actually a book that I asked my nephew what he thought the next Shakespeare I should read. And he said I should check out The Tempest, which I think he said he read himself. So that's why he recommended it. So yeah, I did technically attempt to start reading that. But okay, so I have not picked up, I've read, well, let me talk about, I have read a little bit more of Savage Detectives. And we're still in this one. I'm almost done with chapter 9 of section 2. And in the first section is with Juan Garcia, me and the Font sisters, and Quim, their father, and those interactions, and then meeting the visceral poets, the visceral realism poets. But then it ends with two of the members of the visceral realism poets, Ulysses Lima and Arturo Bolaño, taking Quim's car and traveling cross country from Mexico to and the next section is them interacting with all these people from different parts of the world, like Europe, America, where they, some people that they from their own country, from Mexico, and people's observations of them. We never get their perspective, but we do get all the people observing them and all these people's encounters. Now, there was one section where a group of young people, they travel with this German guy, Hans, who likes to talk a lot and tell stories. And I can't remember where they were heading, but I was thinking Hans was a little shady. But now it seemed like another person was more the shady one than Hans, and Hans was just, just talked way too much. And he did seem to have a relationship with his girlfriend, a not so great relationship with his girlfriend, or I don't know if I can't remember if she was his wife or not. But I didn't know, unless the person narrating that part had met Ulysses Lima or Arturo Bolaño. I don't know. I don't remember if she mentioned that. I think it was a she. It might have been a guy. But yeah, I'm not sure how these people are connected. And some of them they meet them in passing or something. And it's just, so it's very interesting in getting to know each of these individual people and getting a little taste of their lives and their relationship and what was life like in the 70s for them. And it's funny because I had just finished Julie Clark's I think it was the 70s. Was it the 70s? Maybe actually, I might be thinking of the 70s because of oh yeah, it's the 70s, right? Never mind. Because Julie Clark's the Ghostwriter, the half the story takes place in 75, like the event with the narrator, Olivia's father, his story and his two siblings getting murdered takes place in the 70s. And I'm reading a book where the current section I'm in is set in the 70s. So I'm almost kind of interested in reading more books set in the 70s, which, my parents grew up during that time. They were, I don't know if they were considered teenagers in the 80s or in the 70s. I would have to ask them, because they're currently in their 60s right now, so I know they're 70s, 80s kids. So I don't know if they were teenagers in the 70s or not, but I guess they were. Yeah, because I think they were young adult in the 80s. Because they had my sister and I in the 80s. They had me at the end of the 80s in 89, and then my sister was 86, I think, when she was born. So they were young adults in the 80s, college age. Yeah, so I guess they were teenagers in the 70s. But, yeah, I want to read more books that are set in the 70s. It's a very interesting time period, I think. It's so weird, thinking about how sometimes parents just wouldn't care about to let their kids wander around town, in the Ghostwriter, Olivia's aunt, she's a young girl and walking cross country to this, she wants to go to this particular, I don't know if it's a concert or an event of some kind, and she's walked down to her house and just decided to trek cross country. And then, and Vincent is Olivia's father. When he's a kid, and his girlfriend Lydia, who's, they want to go to this concert. And you have these kids hitching rides, and they're, it's such a, like, the things that kids did that nowadays would be a big no-no, and parents would, would not let their kids eat, like, even in the 90s. Like, in the 90s, it was still a little more, I think parents were still a little bit more loose, but it was getting a little more, there's a little more caution, I think, but not as much as today. I think today, of course, today, kids, from what I heard, I don't think kids always go outside as much anymore. Sometimes they just spend all their time on social media. Which, for me personally, that's kind of sad. I feel like kids should still go outside and run around and play, and, play, kickball and climb trees, and, if they live in a safe neighborhood, run around their neighborhood, Go play with their friends instead of just spending all their time talking to them online. But anyway, so I'm also, the one I decided to crack open today and read a little bit more was The Door. And it's the relationship between the two women in the story, Magda the writer, and then the woman that she hires to be her housekeeper, Emrance. So, because Emrance feels like she almost comes off as someone that's she needs someone to take care of, to boss around, to, like, she sees them, like, there's her nephew, like, they make her mad at one point, and she just abandons them, which I think is interesting and stuff, because, she's their housekeeper, she works for them, they are technically her boss, yet it's more like she has more authority over them than they have her. And so they have this, fight, and she leaves, and then they can't take care of the house, and the dog misses Emrance, because, the dog is Emrance's dog. I mean, it's not like her dog in the sense that she bought it, but that she's the one that takes care of the dog. And the nephew says, don't upset her. This is, she's gonna hold it against you, and, like, he's warning them not to provoke her, and it's so weird that she has this kind of power over them and control over what they do, they run their lives, and they kind of have this attachment to her. It's such an odd relationship. And the nephew says she sees you as her children. And they begin to realize that, realize that. Like, the couple, Magda and her husband, realize that he's right, that the things that she does is because she wants to take care of them. Like, she sees them as children, even though they're not. But, and another disturbing, the next chapter was kind of sad and disturbing in a way, because of something that happens to another character. And, Emrance is just like, she made a choice, that's how it is, and, she's very matter of fact about it, about how she responds to this bad thing that happened. But, so, yeah, this woman is so fascinating, and I want to know what happened to her, because I'm sure what happened her life before reflects why she is the way she is in the present day as an older lady. So that's where I'm with that. I have not picked up Royal Assassin. I will come back to that one soon. But like I said, I'm trying to, I want to get this one out of the way first, and then get back to Savage Detectives, and, I'll pick up The Tempest soon. I mean, I want to, like I said, I want to read it during the summer. And then I want to read, I meant last year to read The End of August. That's what it's called, The End of August, by Yumiri. This one. And it is actually, it is a translated work. I think it's Korean. I think the author is Korean. And it's translated by Morgan Giles. Of course, every time I say the name Giles, I'll think of Buffy. But I did not realize it was, like, in the 700-page mark. So, like, it's 710 pages, so it's actually kind of a long book. But I meant to read this in last year, and I was going to read it in August. So, I wanted to go ahead and pick it up this summer as well. So, I will do that. I'm also going to probably pick up... Oh, damn it. Sorry, the screen almost went black on me. I think that messes up my filming. Yeah. I also am thinking about, I'm going to pick up, this is by, again, another book by the author that my dad saw at the library author event a couple of years ago. Well, I guess earlier this year. I think it was. And I read her other book, and I decided it wasn't for me. I can't remember the Zodiac series. I think it's not that one with the Zodiac Academy. It's not Zodiac Academy. It's called the Zodiac series, and it's about Zodiac Panthers. Like, they are people that turn into panthers, a group of brothers, and one of their own. They worship this goddess, but it's kind of an unhealthy, very toxic worshiping, like literal, like they hate, they're disgusted by their hate her, but they can't help but love her at the same time. They're completely devoted to her. And so another member of their clan tried to get them to kill her, assassinate her, and doesn't go well, and so she decides to, she can hold the brother, she puts a curse on them and holds the oldest brother hostage. And the whole book is basically about them trying to find a way to break the curse that she has on them, which means that they can't interact with, they cannot touch a female. It's a touch curse. And you need a female to mate. And meanwhile, the main one of our narrators, there are two narrators. The middle brother is one of the narrators. While he's searching, he's being watched by another one of the shifters, who he can shift into. I want to say he turns into a lion or something. I cannot remember, but it's not a panther. And he has feelings for the other guy. So he's kind of following around, and he's also never, because his mom taught him to not, even though he is a shifter himself, his mom taught him never to trust shifters. So he's a little wary, but he feels drawn to this young man. So we have his perspective as well. And I think that at one point they were planning on going to Greece, but then it just didn't feel like my kind of book. I mean, I think the idea of shifting in panther shifter is really cool, but I just can't, I just wasn't sure about it. And there was a little too much, and there's a bit too much of the intimacy stuff, the romance stuff. Like, I have nothing against romance. It's just these two, like, just constantly obsessing over each other and desiring each other, just not the kind of book, I don't mind, like, a story where two people are in love and they have feelings for each other and they're infatuated, but that's fine. But I almost prefer to watch that and then instead of reading the book, so I'm wary about this one. I don't know what's gonna, but again, this premise sounded really interesting. And this one also has a character as cursed. It says, the price of his revenge, a curse. Yokai's magic exiled him, trapping him in an enchanted forest to suffer immortality alone. The weight of his solitude increased and his bitterness grew as he realized the only people searching for him weren't coming to help. They only want to take Guardian from him. A sword forged and imbued with magic. So when a little girl showed up in his forest, he feared she was a pawn sent to coax magic from the katana from his possession. But she wasn't there for Guardian. And for the first time, he allowed himself to hope. He should have known better. So, I don't know what this is. But I'm still going to try it because I liked the premise of this one as well originally, so I'm going to read it. It's by T.V. Weiss, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but So at some point I'm going to read this as well. And like I said, I'm trying to read more literature inspired by Asian cultures. And this, obviously very, Asian inspired it looks like. So like maybe Japanese inspired. But I felt so guilty because I decided to donate, put the other one in the donation pile. And she, there was a dedication on here to me when my dad, she signed it for me when my dad got him, and I felt bad, and my dad spent the money for me because I wasn't with him at the time, but he told me not to worry about it. If it wasn't for me, it's okay. But yeah, so I'm gonna check this one out as well. Of course, I don't know. Maybe I'll save if I end up not liking this one. Maybe I could save it for. Well, I don't know. She might not. I was thinking I could save it for my friend Larissa because, at some point she'd like to come visit me. But I don't know if this will be her. I don't know if this will be her kind of book or not. But anyway, so there is that. So hopefully I will read the end of August and The Guardian soon. And Royal Assassin I gotta come back to. Okay, and time for yes, I bought some books and I did stick to my 3-book limit. Okay. So, but I do send books there to be donated, so. So first let me show you my nonfiction. So I do have another book about this person, this historical figure, just by a different author. And, but I kind of want to get this one. Like, and which means I'm probably not gonna, I thought about getting rid of the other one, donating the other one along with the other biography about another president, but I might keep them. I don't know. I do need to remove some other books on my shelf but we have The First American, The Life and Times of Benjamin Franklin. He's the guy who invented the stove and did the whole flying the kite and electricity and all that stuff. But I can't remember who it was of the other biography is written by, but I have another one as well. But I saw this, and I actually saw it the other day, and I looked for it today when I went. Luckily, obviously, it was there, but it wasn't in the spot I originally had. It was actually, there are nonfiction, a lot of their nonfiction books they have in a little vault, because what's really cool about that bookstore, the bookstore where I live, it used to be a post office back in the day, but then it became a coffee shop and a bookstore. So they have a little vault where they keep all their nonfiction books, and so it's a little tiny room, and then outside the room is a display of other books. Like a few others that they're featuring, with some of them have special prices. And this one, because I was kind of disappointed because I didn't see this one in the vault, but then I turn around and I see it in that little special display, and it luckily didn't have a separate little price tag on it. Which I don't know, maybe they forgot or they just decided not to put it on there, but sometimes the books that are outside of that space, or they might have a different amount than the general $4 to $5. But luckily for me, they didn't have it, so. But let me read the back. He was the foremost American of his day, yet today he's little more than a mythic caricature in the public imagination. Benjamin Franklin, perhaps the pivotal. Okay, I can't say that word. Pivotal figure in colonial and revolutionary America, comes vividly to life in this mastered biography. Wit, diplomat, scientist, philosopher, businessman, inventor, and bon vivant, Franklin was in every respect America's first Renaissance man. From penniless runaway to highly successful printer, from ardent, loyal subject of Britain to an architect of an alliance with France, and the ensured Americans' independence, Franklin went from obscurity to become one of the world's most admired figure, whose circle included the likes of Voltaire, Hume, Burke, and Kant. Drawing on previously unpublished letters and a host of other sources, acclaimed historian H.W. Brands has written a thoroughly engaging biography of the 18th century genius, a much needed reminder of Franklin's greatness and humanity. The first American is a work of meticulous scholarship that provides a magnificent tour of a legendary historical figure, a vital era in American life, and the countless arenas in which the protean Franklin left his legacy. So I'm excited to read about Ben Franklin, and I feel like I should read some of these biographies in July, because July 4th and everything, but anyway, so next is, okay, so as you can see, I've been kind of trying to get books from different, authors from different countries. So these next two books are from two different, Okay, so first we have Little Gods, Meng Jin. On the night of June 4th, a woman gives birth in Beijing hospital alone. Thus bargains the unraveling of Su Lan, a brilliant physicist who until this moment has successfully erased her past, fighting what she calls the mind's arrow of time. 17 years later, Su Lan's daughter Leah brings her mother's ashes to China, along with silences and contradictions of Su Lan's life, in a territory inhabited by the ghost of the living and the dead. Leah's memories are joined by those of two others, Zhao Wen, the woman last to know Su Lan before she left China, and Yang Zong, the father Leah has never known. In this way, a portrait of Su Lan emerges. An ambitious scientist, an ambivalent mother, and a woman whose relationship to her own history shapes and ultimately unmakes Leah's own sense of displacement. A story of migrations, literal and emotional, spanning time and space and class. Little Gods is a sharp yet expansive exploration of the aftermath of the unfulfilled dreams, an immigrant story and negative that grapples with our tenuous connections to memory, history, and self. Okay, so she was born in Shanghai, but she lives in San Francisco. Oh, and she is a graduate of Harvard University, and Hunter College. Okay, and then we have, so the next one is Gods Without Men, Hari Kunzaru. Jazz and Lisa Mathuru are plunged into a public hell after their son Raj vanishes during a family vacation in the California desert. However, the Mojave is a place of strange power. Before Raj reappears inexplicably unharmed, but not unchanged. The fate of this young family will intersect with that of many others, both past and present, who have traveled through this odd remote town in the shadow of a mysterious rock formation known as the Pinnacles. Among them are an 18th century Spanish missionary, a former World War II aviation engineer turned desert cult messiah, and an incognito rock star on the run. As their stories collide and build upon one another, Gods Without Men becomes a heartfelt exploration of the search for meaning in a chaotic universe. But it's just not that one. Just sounded really intriguing. The idea of something happening to this young boy, and being in this strange environment that has some almost magical aspect to it, that has a magical effect on people, and just in these group of very different people crossing paths and coming together. I think that is always interesting to see these people that have opposite ways of thinking and have different experiences coming, and interacting with each other. I find that can be really entertaining to read about, really engaging. So that is my reading, my reading update and what I've recently purchased. And I hope you all are doing well, and I would love to know what you are currently reading. And do any of the books I mentioned in this video sound familiar to you? And I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.